Go with the national anthem, our pledge. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Join with me as we pray. Our Father and our God, we do thank you for the grace of another day. We thank you for the privilege of being a part of this amazing group of men and women who seek to minister to and serve their community. I pray, Father, that as we do that, that you will not let us forget that we're only able to do this because of your mercy and grace and providing resources and personnel. So, Father, we thank you for that. Father, I pray too that as we serve our community, that we can do so with excellence and at the same time humility, just recognizing that every good and perfect gift comes from you. Father, we do want to thank you for this food. We thank you for the abundance that we have been able to enjoy through it, with it. Pray now that you'll bless our time together during this next 45 minutes or so. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Terry Duncan. Thank you, President Rick. What a great day to be a Libertarian and be at Dothan Rotary Club. Good looking group here. We got some birthdays to celebrate. Have a pair on June the 17th. That's none other than Alan Richards and David Wallace. And I would almost be remiss not to ask how old Mr. and I will say this sincerely, but Jack Collier on June 18th. Jack, what birthday can we ask? Jack, can you come again? There's the honesty close to others. Can you come again? Yeah.
Oh, I say before.
Oh, sorry. You know, the truth will come out if you pound long. Is that true, Russ? Yes. Okay. We're getting it off to the right start here. Sorry he's not here today. Was hoping he would be here, but he's got guests in his house. But anniversaries, Leslie Bloomberg and Susan, June the 18th. And I'm sorry that Leslie wasn't here today to hear that announcement about their anniversary. Maybe somebody can give the word to it. And along with Greg Hendricks and Linda on June 21st. Behave until then so you don't get kicked out. So, yeah. And get a gift. All right. You all have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kurt Davis, come on in. Introductions of guests and visiting Rotarians.
We are happy to welcome our guests and visiting Rotarians today. When I call your name, please stand and remain standing until all visitors are recognized. We have two guests, Mr. Terry Dutton, Wilma Seleva Hanson, and Connie King. And we have the guest Sheila Azar, Miss Kimberly Humphrey. Guest Gregory Walker Gregory. Guest Alex Reynolds, Molly Bracelet. We have a visiting Rotarian, Miss Rachel Cox, our friend. Thank you.
That's good. It's good. All right, 601 points today, 601.
Uh-oh. Get him a camera.
Magic 4, 1469, 1469. Archie.
You know, the DA can't do something about it.
Very hard.
Very hard, sir. All right, it's on. Thank you, sir. Well, thank you, Kevin. Just a reminder, if anybody wants to attend this weekend, the District 680 annual meeting is this weekend. I know Alan, I think Dale, and Bruce are attending for our club. I need to go, but my wife have a wedding stuff to handle, so she's the boss, and I listen very well. At least I try to. And just a reminder too, and I'll remind you again, Russ finishes next week. Will be my retirement party, and I think Paul said we might have served at 30. I didn't get you signed off on it, but like this, we're good. Yeah, okay. But you know, the next 2 weeks we're not meeting, and we'll send out emails to remind you the next 2 weeks, the July 4th, going to pause in the middle of those 2 weeks. So, Ms. Sheila?
I think that sort of in terms of my wishful thinking.
There's always hope.
So it's my honor today to introduce Russ Goodman. He is the district attorney of the 20th Judicial Circuit for Houston and Henry County. Russ was born and raised in Dothan, Alabama. He is a graduate of Woodley High School, Auburn University, and Cumberland School of Law. Russ has been a member of Covenant United Methodist Church since 2006, a board member for Dothan National Baseball at Westgate Park since 2016, and board member for the Exchange Center for Child Abuse and Prevention since 2021. With 12 years in prosecuting criminal cases, Russ has the knowledge of our court and legal system from multiple perspectives. He has successfully prosecuted cases ranging from traffic violations, burglary, drug-related crimes, child abuse, elderly abuse, rape, and murder. Russ has served as an assistant district attorney under 2 district attorneys with excellent success records in criminal prosecution, Doug Valeska and Tom Anderson, as well as under the previous DA, Patrick Jones. This unique opportunity to be mentored under multiple leadership styles has allowed him the understanding of what it takes to be an effective district attorney. We're happy to have you here, Russ.
Thank you. Yeah, y'all come out here. That's more of a view for a judge. Just very much about that. This is more my style. But thank y'all for having me this afternoon. I appreciate y'all wanting to talk to y'all. I figured what I would do is just give y'all kind of an understanding of what the DA is, who he is, what our office does, kind of what we have to deal with. One of the things I saw during the campaign was to knock on doors and people. Some knew what the DA did.
Some kind of had an idea what the DA's office did, and some had no idea. They've never been into trouble with law, which is good. They didn't really have an idea what our office did or does. So I thought I'd briefly just kind of give you all an overview of what we deal with on kind of a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. So y'all can have an idea of what we're doing for y'all, and hopefully doing a good job and trying to keep the community safe here in Houston County and Henry County. As Jill said, Russ Goodman, DA, came into office in '23. Before that, I worked in the DA's office since 2014, and before that, I was in private practice for 10 years. Did a lot of criminal defense, civil defense, kind of all over the map. But landed in the DA's office back in 2014, and it was the best decision I'd ever made. I would like to think it's the best decision Doug Gillespie ever made, but I don't know about that. I was at the DA since 14 and had a chance to work under a lot of good DAs, and so here I am. The first thing is, again, like she said, is there's 41 circuits in the state. There's 42 DAs. You're wondering how do we have an extra DA? Well, Jefferson County, and you have Bessemer, the Bessemer division. So that's where the 42 DAs come in, but it's really under 41 circuits. We're in the 20th Judicial Circuit, which is Houston and Henry County. Some DAs have one county, some district attorneys have up to 5 counties. And but we're lucky, Houston and Henry keep us pretty busy. I don't want any more interest. It certainly keeps us busy. But basically, what the district attorney's office does is we prosecute cases. And we prosecute most of the cases here in our circuit. The cases we don't, because we're lucky enough to have a municipal city court here in Dothan, any traffic tickets or misdemeanors that are written by the Dothan Police Department are handled over at the municipal court. Everything else falls under our jurisdiction. So that's traffic tickets out in the county, any misdemeanors in the county, and any felonies within Houston and Henry County, whether it's the city or the county. We prosecute all those cases, and it's a lot. Usually, we have about 4,000 cases that we deal with in a year. That certainly varies. I think in '23 we had 3,955 cases that came through. In 2024, we had 4,166 cases that we dealt with. In 25, so far, we've got about 2,161 cases. So we're right on track to kind of where we are. And to give you kind of perspective, what that means is, although we deal with misdemeanors and traffic tickets and that sort of thing, obviously, the main thing that we focus on are the felony crimes that are committed here in Houston County and in Henry County. Those are the ones that are serious Class A, Class D felonies, Class C felonies. We handle all those. Those come through our office. But the way that gets started is they have to come through the grand jury. In Alabama, you can't prosecute a felony case without presenting it to the grand jury first. So that sort of starts the process. And I'll get into what the grand jury does in just a minute. But just to give you an idea of what we do, our office, we have 2 offices. We have one here at the Houston County Courthouse, and then we also have an office at the Henry County Courthouse. And we have a total of 7 prosecutors. We got 1 in Henry County, and the rest work down here. Staff-wise, I believe we've got 16 or 17 staff personnel that work both offices, 2 in Henry County, the rest down here. Some of those work in certain divisions, pretrial division. We've got the grand jury, and we deal with a lot of stuff. But that's personnel-wise, we're one of the biggest law firms in the city, if not the biggest. And so we have a lot of personnel that we have to deal with. Of course, I try cases. And then Patrick Amison is our chief assistant, who also helps try cases, trains the assistants, helps them. He manages the assistant DAs, keeps them on course as far as courtroom assignments and that sort of thing. I handle courtroom and then some administrative stuff also. But that's kind of the gist of our office. We're a pretty big organization, and it takes a lot of people to run it. And luckily, when I came in, I worked with a lot of the people that are there still, and so I knew coming in that we had a good foundation. I just didn't need to mess it up. So that's going to be my plan. Because we have people in place, and they've done a really good job of carrying the torch and keeping us pointed in the right direction. But out of all those cases that come in, the first thing we have to do is we have to run them through grand jury, all the felony cases. And typically in a year, we will have, the grand jury will meet 6 times throughout the year. We try to space it out. We have grand jury every other month. Then the months in between, they come back and report out. What that means is they basically come back and we find out the indictments, whether they have true billed the cases, which means they're going to go to circuit court, or whether they have no billed them and those cases die in grand jury. That's what starts the whole process. Without the grand jury, we would have nothing to prosecute. Because again, in Alabama, that's how you get your felonies to circuit court. And so we run grand jury. I usually run it. I try to run grand jury because I want to have my thumb on the cases that come through our office. I think as a district attorney, I need to know what cases we've got going on and what cases are coming through. And then sometimes what cases don't need to come through. Just because somebody's been arrested doesn't always mean that that case needs to go forward. And that's one of the things that I have to do. As a prosecutor, you think, well, you're all about prosecuting, and that's a big majority of it. But I'm also tasked with the ethical duty to, if I don't think there's enough to move the case forward, then we don't move it forward. Whether I like it or not, if I don't have the evidence, then I have a duty not to prosecute. So grand jury gives us a chance to sort of sift through those cases and see what makes it to circuit court. We've got 5 circuit judges in this circuit. We've got 3 district judges in the circuit, and so there's a lot of court going on, and we stay busy, and it keeps our assistants very busy, working through the files and trying cases. Now, the way this circuit has, at least in Houston County, Henry County is a little different. We have 1 ADA per courtroom. And so what will happen is on a trial week, that ADA is responsible for handling all the cases on their docket. And their docket could be 20-page docket, it could be a 50-page docket, depending on how that judge sets the cases, which means that 1 ADA can be responsible. Each page has 4 or 5 cases. You do the math. That's a lot of cases that these assistants have to deal with. But unfortunately for us, there's not a pause button that I can hit to stop crime, and the cases keep coming, and so we have to keep bringing them through. So it's a hectic process, but we've got the right people in the right place to handle it. But they do have a hard job, and the way it's set up is each judge has contract attorneys, which are paid by the state through the Indigent Defense Fund, and they're paid that way. So we're already kind of behind this. This is not the but we're already kind of behind the 8 ball before this stuff even gets started, because I've got 3 defense attorneys who are splitting up the docket in a third, and I've got an ADA that has to take on all of the cases. But so far we managed. In the future, I would like to have at least 2 ADAs in every courtroom. I think the judges would appreciate it. We certainly would appreciate it. And that's kind of what we're working towards. But right now, we are having to work with what we've got. And so far, every ADA has their own courtroom, and they go through the cases. And so you have trials. Used to, before COVID, we would have 1 trial week per month, which was busy. It was hectic. I mean, you can imagine usually at least 4 of the circuit judges would have cases set for that week. And then you'd have jurors coming in. It was a lot. It was a lot to handle. But after COVID, they decided, well, we need to space these out for obvious reasons. Didn't want that many people coming in the courthouse. And so they made a change. And so now what we do is it's sort of we have 2 circuit judges that sit or have a trial week, then maybe a week off, and then the other 3 sit. We have trial terms. So there's good and bad to both of that. It was nice to kind of get them out of the way because you had a week that was hectic. But then once you got through that week, you kind of had 3 weeks to sort of gather your thoughts and get back to the next docket. But again, that's the way it's been set up, and that's what we deal with. Funding. This is always a fun topic for me. A lot of people think that we are a state agency. The DA's office is a state agency. We are not. We are state employees, but we are not a state agency, which means we're not fully funded. And unfortunately, there are some people in Montgomery that still think that we're a state agency, and so they think that we're flush with cash, and DAs don't need any more money, but I'm telling you, we do. The way it works is we are, and I don't want to get off in the weeds with this, but we're basically allotted a certain amount of money. And I think it hovers around 46, 47 million a year. Well, about half of that goes to pay our supernumerary DAs, who are retired DAs. And then that also goes to pay the salary of the DAs. So what's left goes to pay the salaries of everybody else in those offices, which usually comes down to about $24 million. Well, when you split that up between 41 circuits, it's not a lot. As I alluded to just a little bit ago, we've got contract attorneys. Their indigent defense fund is about 84 million. So the people that are trying to keep the bad guys in prison don't get near as much money as the people that are trying to keep them out of prison, which I don't think is fair, but I digress. But that's kind of how our funding works. We get a certain amount of money, and the rest of it we have to scratch, fight, and claw for. What I get from the general fund, or what our office gets from the general fund, is about 33% of our budget. The other 67% or whatever it is, we have to get it on our own. And usually there's a deficit. If you do the math on what our expenses are, what our salaries are, and what we're supposed to bring in, we've got a pretty big hill to climb before we get out of the gate in October. This year starts over. And that's a lot, because you've got, your main job is to put bad people in prison for as long as you can. That's my job. My job is to prosecute people, send bad people off for as long as I can send them off. The administrative side is one thing I was not ready for. I didn't know what to expect, and it is tough. It is tough to piece all that together. But my main priority will always be the protection of the citizens of Houston and Henry County, and this all comes secondary. But it does create some issues. So we're working to solve some of that. Part of what we do is we collect court costs, fines, that sort of thing. All that helps supplement our budget. We have pretrial diversion. That's a pretrial program for people that get in trouble that don't have a record or don't have a long record. Or they do have priors and not anything violent. And we try to give them a chance to do what's right. And if they do what's right, then after a year, their charges are dropped. But they pay their court costs and fines through our pretrial diversion program. We raise a decent amount of money through that. So that's another thing that supplements our budget. Again, court costs and fines we get, and condemnations we get a little bit of money for that. But for the most part, we're usually out of the gate with a deficit. So it's been rough. That was one thing that I didn't know about this job, but a lot of it is just trying to find funding for your employees. Here's the thing, unfortunately, we're not able to pay what some of these defense attorneys can pay. I think the defense contracts around $80-some thousand. That's just for the defense contract. Right now, our office can't pay that for starting ADA. So it's tough to get people in. So we're having to find new ways, creative ways to get people to want to come work for us. Because it's not the most glamorous job, and I'll tell you, it's a lot to deal with. Take a lot home. We deal with people on their worst day. We don't deal with people on their best day. And it's a tough job. It's only for certain people. You gotta really wanna love to do this and really have a passion to do it, because you're certainly not in it for the money. But, it is hard to pull younger attorneys in, because, you know, they think, well, I wanna go out and make as much money as I can, and I don't blame you. But there's something to be said about protecting the people that are community and doing the right thing, and that's sort of what brought me to this DA's office. That's what I love about it. And that's why I do what I do, and I hope to continue to do what I do. But, that's it, sort of in a nutshell. You know, like I said, we handle a lot of cases. 4,000 cases in a year is a lot. They're not stopping. Crime does not stop. Not gonna stop for us. Not gonna stop for anybody. The best we can do is move the cases as best we can and try to get justice for the families and the victims of families, our offenders, victims, as best we can. And that's what we try to strive to do on a day-to-day basis. Luckily, I've got great people that work with us, and they make my job a lot easier. But it's also citizens like you that support what we do, and we certainly appreciate it, because we need all the support we can. I will say this, since I came in 23, we've done a lot of good things. We've tried to streamline a lot of the processes that they've got in our office. We've tried to bring the office up to date. Mike has been a great help in doing that. His business has helped us with our discovery. We basically, unless correct me if I'm wrong, but we have no more paper files. We are strictly a digital file office now. And I believe we have converted 9,000 files into digital files since 2023. So that's big, and it helps. I think it helps with the judges' caseload, because it's easier for us to get our discovery to the defense attorneys. It streamlines that process, and so hopefully that speeds things up and gets cases moving a little faster. But there's still a lot of things that I'd like to do, and like I said, I will be there for a long time to do it. So, but that's all I've got. That's it. So, if you've got any questions, let me know. Yes, sir.
Are we seeing more violent crimes?
There's upticks. I wouldn't say there's more. It's kind of been steady here for a little while. The biggest uptick, though, I think, as far as crimes, it's not the crimes that are committed, but it's the kids that are committing the crimes. They're a lot younger these days. And that's a problem, because our juvenile court system is set up not to punish, but to rehabilitate. And that's great. That makes sense. We don't want to punish a 13-year-old child if they made a mistake. We want to try to rehabilitate. The problem is you have these older guys, mostly, that know this. And so they go out and they recruit younger people, pay $100 to shoot up that house. Well, to a 12, 13-year-old kid, it's a lot of money. And they tell them, hey, look, if you get caught, they're not going to do anything to you. They're going to slap you on the wrist and you're going to be fine anyway. So that creates the biggest problem I see right now is the age that these kids are committing crimes. It's gotten so much lower. And again, part of that is you try to deal with them in the juvenile court system, again, which is what we're supposed to do, is to rehabilitate. But it gives the older guys that know that incentive to just go pluck them out and get them to do sort of their dirty work. And, so I wouldn't say there's a rise in crime, but there has been a shift in who's committing crimes as far as the age gap. I mean, we've got a pending capital murder case right now where the kid was 14 years old and shot killed 2 people. I mean, in cold blood. And so that's scary. That's disturbing. And we've got some that are 18 that have committed murder. And not that there's an appropriate age, but it's tough. It's hard to get a handle on it too. Like I said, you have to deal with them in juvenile unless they do something really bad. So I hope that answers your question. Yes, sir.
What percentage of that 4,000 cases actually make it to trial?
A very small percentage. I would say on an average trial term, we try maybe 1 or 2 cases on average. There's only so much you can get done. And if you try, 2 weeks, serious cases, say Class A or Class B felonies, which that's usually what we end up trying, are the more serious crimes, which makes sense, for the defendant to lose, as far as sentencing, so we try those cases, but, you know, I don't have a percentage, but I would say, you know, out of that, it's a single digit number. But that's just based on the fact that we can only do so much, the judges can only set so much. Once we have a trial, we have to move on to those cases that, you know, you may have 10 cases that you're ready to try, that need to be tried. But in one single term, we may only be able to get to 1 or 2 of them, maybe 3 if you're lucky. And so then those 7 cases get pushed on to the next docket, you just try to whittle it down as best you can.
Because I think you need to know a lot of those are misdemeanors and felonies, because if you go to court, there's 150 defendants sitting out there waiting for trial in that day.
Absolutely.
So you're talking about like 9 cases, you have to somehow figure out how to live those things. So be the guy, be an assistant PM is first week of the job, walking into that situation where it's 135 cases, back and forth somehow. There's a lot of negotiations going on.
There are plea deals to be made, for sure. Yes, sir.
This is the question table today, by the way. I have 2 questions. One is, whenever you were running, there was a kind of a conversation about our prosecution success rate.
Yes, sir.
So do you have that metric to the date of your term? And then the second is, you're talking about money and how hard that is. Do you always wind up getting it, or do you run short? And if you run short, who doesn't get paid?
Luckily, we end up getting it. I'll answer your last question first. As far as funding, as long as I've known, worked in the DA's office and I've paid attention, we've always been able to come up with the funds to pay everybody and to supplement our budget as need be. But the way the DA's association does it, or OPS, which is the Office of Prosecutorial Services, they sort of work hand in hand with us. They're our liaison. They work with legislators to get our money. If a circuit cannot make payroll, no circuit makes payroll until somebody chips in and helps. So, and that has happened. But luckily not in our circuit, but we have had other DAs and other circuits that have had to reach out and say, hey, we need $150,000. I can't get payroll. And the way that it works is if they don't get paid, nobody gets paid. So, but again, we're lucky here. Hadn't had that issue yet. And there's avenues that we're working on to try to bring more money to do that, so we don't have that problem. As far as my conviction rate, I don't have a number. I feel good about it. I'll say that, since I don't have the number. But I think it's great. No, I will say this. I think one of the issues in prior administrations was the way that some of the cases were handled. Cases that were tried didn't need to be tried. Because, and Doug used to have a saying, and Mr. Sorrell, you probably remember it, I don't know, it may have come from you, but they say when your plays are set in hell, your cast, or you don't have a cast of angels. And that's the problem that you always have. I'd say probably 70 to 80% of the violent crimes that we have are bad people doing bad things, and they're running together. We had a case last week that got a not guilty on. But it was 4 individuals in a car that were going to rob somebody. Well, the dice game that they were going to rob didn't happen. So they decided, well, let's just rob the guy that's sitting in the front passenger seat with us, who had a gun. So, it's cases like that that we run up against that are tough. And that's why you get those verdicts. I think the one thing that we're doing different is I don't think every co-defendant's case needs to be tried. Because, like I said in the beginning, my job is to send the worst of the worst to prison for as long as I can. That may mean that I got to take one of those bad guys that's in that car that can tell me what happened and can verify to the jury what happened. I may have to cut a deal with that person. I don't want to. But I think prior, in years prior, what would happen is they would just try everybody in the car. Instead of saying, okay, we got a weak case. What can we do to make our case as strong as it can be? Well, we're just probably going to have to make a deal with this person. And, you know, unfortunately, if you don't know the context of when that deal was made or the facts behind it, you may see it and think, well, why did that guy only got 15 years? He was charged with murder. That's crazy. Well, I promise you, if he got 15 years, he's not the one that pulled the trigger. He's the one that helped us. And that's one thing that I've tried to change the mindset of our prosecutors, and it's another way I handle grand jury. Is just because you're a co-defendant, you know, I may need your help, because without you, or without your co-defendant, I'm not going to be able to prove that the guy that pulled the trigger did it. And that's the one I'm going to worry about. It's the person that came up with it, had the idea, or pulled the trigger. Yeah, the ones that are responsible, they can testify and help us, they're going to go to prison too. But you get in that weird situation where you kind of have to make a deal with the devil sometimes. And I think we've done a good job of doing that. We've gotten a lot of convictions based on that. And we've gotten a lot of cases that have quit. And that's another thing. It's hard to say because we haven't had really a ton of trials as far as Class A, you know, murder, capital murder since I've been in. I think we've had 2 capital murder trials. One pled to manslaughter, and then we got a conviction of the other. He was sentenced to life without a month ago. So I hadn't had a ton of capital cases come through. Now that's starting to change, whether it was by directive or whatever. But I got lucky my first year or so because we didn't have a bunch of those capital cases coming. So we were able to get in and dig into them and evaluate them. So, if we want to get this person, we want to have the best case, then we're going to need to reach out to these other co-defendants. So we've made deals and offers, and there are co-defendants that have pled guilty on capital murder cases that y'all probably don't even hear about, but it's deals that we've had to make that primary case strong. So I say all that to say I don't have the numbers, but I think, in all honesty, that we are doing it the right way. And I think if we continue to do it this way, then I'll be happy to pull them up. I'll have them for you the next meeting. Yes, ma'am.
What's been the most interesting case that you've had lately, or anytime?
Oh, goodness. Most of them, I don't remember being here to read.
You start to throw that out.
No, we have crazy cases. There was I had a case when I was a defense attorney. But I was practicing up in Henry County, and I was in Abbeville, and they didn't have animal control up there. Now they may have animal control now, but at the time they did not. And I represented a guy who lived with his wife and his mother-in-law, and they lived up around the lake, and there was stray dogs everywhere. The guy came home one afternoon, and the mother-in-law had let some stray dog in their basement. And so he calls, the city and says, hey, y'all gotta come get the dog. They're like, we don't have animal control. You gotta take care of it. It's like, with me. And they're like, well, it may have rabies. You can't just let that dog out. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do? And the guy told me, he said, what you need to do is you need to cut his head off. And then you mail it to Montgomery so they test for rabies. And even the judge, when we tried that case, he's like, wait, you told him to do what? That was fairly interesting. We've had some deuces. I was prosecuting that case real quick. The defendant represented himself, which sounds like, oh, that's going to be fun. That's easy. Those are the worst cases to try. I promise you, I'd rather have an attorney make an objection. It's a little more crisp. You've got sort of a process that you can kind of go through. You get in a rhythm. You get somebody that's representing themselves, and they're all over the place. And you're trying to keep up. But he was a defendant in a robbery case, and he lived with 2 women, and had to live with 2 women, and then had left, moved out, whatever. Well, he decides that he wants to come back and rob them or something. And so he comes in and pulls a gun on them and robs them. And does take, I can't remember exactly what he took, it wasn't much, but anyway, he pulled a gun on him, which is serious, so he takes off, well, of course, they know who he is. They're like, I think he's our roommate. And, they call the police, he's arrested, we go to trial, and he gets fighting mad about it. It was not him. And, there was one of the witnesses, one of our victims was on the stand, and Judge Anderson was on the bench. First of all, he kept calling the female sir. And she was like, I'm a female. So she was already kind of geared up, and this defendant starts asking her questions, and at some point he's like, "There's no way you knew that it was me," and she just got up. She was like, "Damn it, you paid rent here. I know exactly who you are." And she's leaning over, pointing at him. I'm like, there you go. And so yeah, there's a lot that I can't talk about. Things go on, but it always keeps you on your toes for sure. Yes, sir.
Question table again. You only have a week to try 2 or 3 cases, right?
Yes, sir.
What happens if you get a case that's extended and you can't get it in that window?
Normally, the judges are good about that. If we see that there's going to be a case, what the judges do is they'll ask when they're putting the lineup together. They'll ask the defense and the prosecution, how long do you think this trial's going to last? How many days do you think this trial's going to last? And so we kind of gauge it that way. And if it's a capital case or something that might lead over to the next week, they'll just set that week open. They'll move their calendar. So yes, sir, we're not pigeonholed into just a week, but normally that's just how it works out. I mean, I think I've tried having capital cases, but I don't think I've ever had a capital case last more than 5 days. So we usually get them done, but if not, the judges are very accommodating, and they'll just open their schedule up for the next week.
In your time as being a prosecutor, of any time in defense or prosecution, have you ever known of any sequestering has to be done of juries?
Not that I've ever
You
done.
hear it in other places,
Yeah.
but we don't see it
No,
here.
I've never had that. Never had venue change. I've had some juries where I'd love for them to be sequestered. They don't listen to me. They don't care what I think or what I say. So, but no, sir, I've never. And I don't know of any local jury judge that I can think of in the past several years, or 5, 6, 7 years that we've had this question. Yeah, so we maybe had one in the last 2 years.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is AI having any impact on your industry and what you anticipated doing?
I've seen some lawyers writing briefs with it. They got in trouble. Not anything positive yet. No, sir, we have not. I don't know the impact that it's going to have as far as what we do. It may make, I think the biggest impact might be where you have research, case research, that sort of thing. I mean, we have Westlaw and Lexis that you can go into keywords and search a lot of stuff. I think that maybe helps with that. And you can have better searches that way. But as far as what we do, I don't see it having a ton of impact. Like I said, I've seen for a couple of guys in the federal court system ask Gronk to write their brief. He did, or she did, or it did, whatever, and they got in trouble. But I'm sure it's going to have an impact. But as far as what we do, our day-to-day operations. Yes, sir.
Do you see cases involving the financial exploitation of seniors in your work?
Absolutely.
Is that a trend that continues to go higher?
As long as I've been with the DA's office, it's stayed roughly the same. Yes, sir. I mean, we probably have, 15 to 20 financial exploitation cases, serious cases a year. The problem, and it's the same problem we have with these domestic violence cases. Before Kimberly and I left the office this morning to come over here, you'll have a lot of victims that by the time they get to court, don't want to prosecute. And, and it's sad because I know that they've been done wrong, and the problem is without their testimony, I can't prosecute the case, and they're my victim. I need them to tell the jury what was taken. What you see is it's usually grandparents, and they're taking care of a grandchild or great grandson or daughter or whatever, and whatever happens in between the arrest and the time they get to either grand jury or it gets through grand jury. We try to, like I was saying earlier, we try to flesh a lot of that out in grand jury. If it's a case that they don't want to prosecute, then I try to end it in grand jury, because it's just going to waste an ADA's time and money and the judge's time and for everybody to deal with, and then the victim come in and say, well, I don't want to do it. So what happens is at grand jury, a lot of times, just like with financial exploitation, we'll have the victims come in and they're just like, prosecute. And unless I've got, an officer that was there and witnessed the violence, or there's nothing I can do. And it's the same way with those financial exploitations. We had a case, I think, on one of the last dockets that the grandmother called and she said, I'm not going to participate. My grandson's doing fine, and he's back in the house, and you think, great. That's just where it started. But fortunately, there's only so much we can do. But I would say there's not really a rising trend. The trend is that they get dismissed because we don't have victims that want to. Not that they don't want to cooperate, they just don't.
We had the green dot. That was a few years ago. The green dot cards where people were calling, and elderly people will tend to talk to people on the phone more than younger people. They're like, I'm busy, click. But they're like, oh, how's your day? And they'll talk to them more, and they'll be more open. So they were having people put money on like a green dot, like a prepaid green dot. And that they run those scams from time to time. We haven't had it in 4 or 5 years, but we did have a slew of people calling in about those prepaid cards. And people would call them back and they take the money off of those cards. So, somebody that's lonely or somebody that doesn't have somebody coming in checking on them, they're more susceptible to that. But we haven't had that in probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, we hadn't. But the biggest frustration you get, like I said, is you got a good case, and sometimes it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not just $3,000 or $4,000. It's a lot of money. And you've got these victims that are in a point in their life where they're retired. They need that. But it's unfortunate. Yes, sir.
Are crimes by illegal aliens or undocumented immigrants an issue in your area?
We have a handful, but ICE does a pretty good job of coming and getting them pretty quick around here. Yes, sir. We don't have any issue getting rid of them. In fact, it helps some of our cases because we get a call from ICE before saying, hey, we're coming down to get whoever it is. It is. That's one case of some of our docket. They're gone. But it does happen, yes, sir. But we haven't had any issue with most of it. All right. Again, thank y'all for all your support. I really do enjoy what I'm doing. I love to do it for a long time, and appreciate all y'all for your support for our office.
Thank you, Russ. James, I know you get tired of me talking, but you cut me off every time. Again, we'll see y'all next Monday. The next 2 weeks we're off. I'll send out emails to everybody. Thanks y'all for coming today, and this weekend all stand. The things we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? God bless you and have a great day.
Hey, Russ, great interest. Appreciate you coming.